Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you today. My name is Cindy McDonald, and I have with me Kristina Dooley. Kristina is the founder and CEO of Estrela Consulting. Hi, Kristina.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
So you and I have been talking, and we've talked a lot about work-life balance. Can you share some tips or things that you have found that have helped you to manage home and work and children and all those things to find that balance in your life? What have you found that's been very helpful for you?
Sure thing. One of the things that I discovered very quickly upon becoming a parent, I have 8-year-old triplets right now. And when I became a mom, I was already working as a consultant, and I realized very quickly that I had to set some boundaries and I really had to try to figure out the work-life balance piece of things, or else I would go crazy. And one thing that I did that I think has been a game changer in terms of me being happy both professionally and personally, and being able to manage my life in both of those arenas, has been the ability to set up time boundaries, meaning I have very rarely worked a Sunday since I became a consultant, even before I had children. And I know there are some consultants who could not operate their businesses without working on Sundays. But for me, I just said, you know what, especially once my kids were born, Sundays were off limits. They were time with my family. And the way that I kind of put that into context was when I schedule appointments with my dentist and I log on to his online portal to find a time that works, and he has dates and times that are blocked out, I never once question, well, what is he doing on that day? Why can't he meet with me at that date and time? I never even think of that. What I am thinking about is, let me find a time that looks like I'm free, he's free, and we make it work. And so I started approaching things that way, thinking I needed a calendar tool. I used Calendly. And as soon as I started using Calendly a handful of years ago, my life changed. I would just send the link to parents and students and even other colleagues, professionals, people, anyone that wanted to have some time with me. I'd just send them my link and they could look on there and see when I was free. I didn't have to explain why I wasn't free on Sunday. And I also didn't have myself going back and forth saying, oh, well, I guess I could come in at 10. I guess I could bump back that other thing I wanted to do with my kids or my husband. I don't do that anymore because they schedule when I'm free. So that's been truly a game changer in my life. And when I tell people about that, they start to think of those boundaries a little bit differently when we start to think about other service providers that we use, that we don't have those expectations of 24/7 availability for most other service providers that we use. So, yeah.
That's very true, because being able to take it that one step away from you instead of having that conversation back and forth does help create those boundaries. And that alone, not having to have that conversation, are you free here, that saves tons of times for both you and your client as well.
Oh yeah, tons of time. Mm-hmm.
So what are some other things that you have found that have helped you as a consultant, as a mom, as a professional woman?
Well, some other things I've done is, so thinking of the time that I spend in my work, I'm really intentional in looking ahead, looking out, a month at a time to say, okay, if I know I've got these big things coming up in my professional life, obviously we've got deadlines that loom, whether you're working as a college consultant, school consultant, you've got deadlines that you're planning towards. And so what I would do is I would really intentionally plan out my personal calendar as well. A great example would be my own physical health, even, like where I would say, you know what, during the fall season, I'd find myself getting really lazy and not taking care of myself. And then I would feel really terrible by the time, the end of the winter would come. And it was very clear that I wasn't fact, I was putting aside things that I needed to do for myself, like whether that's going to the gym or taking some time, even just to read a book or, take, again, personal time. And so what I started doing was actually putting those things on my calendar too. So if I would say, I knew if my goal was that I wanted to go into exercise 3 times a week at the gym, I used my calendar. I put it on my calendar. And so it was like an appointment for me, or it is an appointment for me. And I didn't change that. Once my busy season came, what I would do instead was I would say, okay, if I know I'm going to do this, but I really need to have time available to meet with families and students. If I was taking time away during my regular office hours to do, the gym or even meeting with a friend or something like that, then what I do is I'd say, okay, you know what, maybe for the months of October and November, maybe, every Tuesday and Thursday night, I add an extra hour, I stay a little bit later. And one of the things I've done since I became a mom, and as my kids have gotten a little bit older and notice when I'm not around more than they used to, is I am home every single night. I'm home for dinner. And that's one of the things I do. I may come back to the office, or I may schedule meetings once they're in bed or those kinds of things. But I make a point to be present when I am. And that means no phone, no texting, no replying to emails. I actually, it's out of sight, out of mind in some ways. That's a challenge for us today to be disconnected from our devices. But I can tell you that my kids notice. They notice when I'm not, physically there, but not there. And I, and when they start to make comments and I say, okay, I gotta put the phone away, and this is the time, and maybe I have to pick back up at 8:30. I'm back on the job. But up until that point, that's time I can't get back with my kids. So it's really important for me to do that.
I think that's a very important key, is to realize that our families are just as important. And if you don't put it on the calendar, and you're also your personal well-being, that a lot of times we just wait until we have time, and then that time never materializes. So I think those are very wise.
And I think also if you're forthcoming with families about, for me, for example, my families that I work with, they know that I'm a mom. They know I've got kids at home. The moms are very, understanding that they've been there and they're currently there. And so I'm maybe a little bit more transparent than some consultants are in terms of their personal life versus professional. But I think it's important for them to know, if I have a child that's ill, or I've got something going on, that I need to go to, a gymnastics meet. And as long as I feel like families, they're fully understanding, as long as you give them a heads up that this is kind of what this looks like. And as long as there's an amount of time that you are available, so that they know, okay, we'll still have plenty of time to get together with you. And same thing for things like vacations and summer months. Every year my family goes on a vacation the week of the 4th of July, and we've done that forever. And so when families engage our services, that's one of the first things I tell them, is just so that there are a couple times of the year that I'm out of pocket. This is one of them. And I've never once had a family say, that's unacceptable. We can't hire you because of that. As long as you let people know, I think they're okay with it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's very true. Well, thank you very much, Kristina. Those are great tips and tools, and I know people will appreciate hearing those and acting upon them. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me.